second long drive.
Stretch.
It's a dig. Hit is far.
She is gone.
I don't believe what I just saw.
You're locked into the Hot Stove Cast. Here is the Hot Stove host. Hello and welcome to the Hot Stove Cast. I'm the Hot Stove host, Zach Simon. Yes, it's the 9th episode of the first season. Today is July 26th. The trade deadline for Major League Baseball is July 29th. So next week, I will have all your trade deadline recap coverage here on Hot Stove Cast 110. However, this week, I've got a jam-packed show for you. Interviews. First and foremost, an interview with Phillies first base prospect Darick Hall, who now plays first base for the Reading Fightin Phillies. He's a left-handed power bat. He talks about his passion for fishing and hunting, his college religious and baseball mission in Curacao. He was at Dallas Baptist. He was actually at Dallas Baptist with his teammate in Reading, Austin Listy. And I talk Vlad Jr. I went and saw the Reading Phillies play the New Hampshire Fisher Cats in Reading. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was there, obviously Bichette Jr., Cavan, Biggio. So yeah, I went there. I talked to Bob Lipman about the Fisher Cats and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. On today's show. Ballpark Chowdown obviously goes to Reading. I went to this place called Paulines, had a delicious wrap. I'm learning, people, that when you go to these minor league parks, the best places to go for food are the pop-up stands for, you know, the local businesses, the places that have businesses nearby, not your standard tenders and fries or your burger or whatever. But yeah, so Ballpark Chowdown comes up later in the show. The usual suspects, batting cleanup, and so many more. What's Cooking will come back. But yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. Long show today, 30 minutes with Darick Hall. I've never done a 30-minute interview in my life, but yes, 30 minutes with Darick Hall. But before I get to that, it's time for Wild Pitch.
Just a bit outside.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yes, for Wild Pitch, it was kind of a weird week in Major League Baseball because, you know, they had the All-Star break and the All-Stars came back. It's kind of a weird schedule coming back from things, but now we are back in the thick of things. But I mention that because the weirdness just followed suit in Tampa Bay as Sergio Romo played third base. Yes, reliever Sergio Romo was playing third base the other night. Just simply outrageous. Moving on to Philadelphia, there was a man in the seats who had a baby in his arms. Who that baby must have been a year, maybe 18 months tops. I don't even know if it's 18 months. It's a really small child. So I mentioned that because if you go to my Twitter at HotStoveCast, there's a video of this man catching a home run out of the air with his right hand and the baby in his left. And this is in a swamp of people. It was in left field, and you know it's not like there were a few people around. No, this was a jammed section, and this guy made this catch. And I don't know what was more incredible, the actual catch itself, or this guy in a dark red maroon Philly shirts reaction right behind him. It was really something unbelievable. Yeah, give it a look at Hot Stove Cast on Twitter. More news this week, speaking of the deadline. By the way, Senator Dianne Feinstein of California broke the Joakim Soria to the Brewers trade. What? This is according to MLB Network insider John Heyman. And while I couldn't find where Feinstein broke it, Heyman did say that, so it must be true. That's pretty ridiculous. She's an 85-year-old senator. I believe she's a senator, but I saw somebody joked on Twitter if an 85-year-old congressperson senator beat me to or broke a baseball story before me, I would retire, and that was pretty funny. Moving on here, Lorenzo Cain, speaking of the Brewers, he said that this week he and his bat are, quote, aren't on speaking terms. Don't really know where to go with that one, but that's just something I found. Let's move on to New York, the Yankees, where Gary Sanchez was placed in the DL with a re-aggravation of his groin injury. Poor guy can't seem to stay healthy. He was absolutely put on blast the other night for not legging out a grounder that turned into a double play in a one-run game. If he had beat that out at first, it would have been a tie game. Sanchez even admitted he wishes he had hustled more. I hear Yankee fans say that Sanchez never hustles. which is kind of true. He really just smashes and doesn't really try to hustle out there. But you know what? I don't really fault. Normally, I'd fault the guy, but if he has a groin injury, I mean, he could have torn his groin. He would have been out for the year, and he would have probably not started the next season at the beginning of the season. So it's like tough to get upset with the guy. He's a young guy. I think he's 25. If he's 26, it's a very young 26. He's got a long career ahead of him. No need to get crazy about it. But I mentioned this because there was a fan in the seats who had a sign that said, "My baby crawls faster than Gary," confirmed by StatCast. I found that at Starting 9 on Twitter. So speaking of StatCast and analytics, John Lester is not a big analytics guy. He was at it again. So he's pitching in Chicago, and he gave up a wind-aided home run. He was quoted as, he likes to needle the new age baseball guys. So he was quoted as saying, quote, "I think the perfect example was today. 42 degrees on that home run is supposedly not a home run, and it went out. I already yelled at our guys in here for that," end quote. So, I mean, heck, I've seen 42-degree home runs go out. I mean, you get that jet stream going and it's gone. But yeah, in case you didn't know, 27 degrees is the optimal home run marker. You typically see bombs, anywhere from like 22 to 33, 36 degrees. You need 100 miles an hour in the exit velocity minimum. It varies. There's some physicists out there who knows all this a lot better than I do. But last but not least here on, before we get to Darick Hall of the Phillies on Wild Pitch, Domingo Germán had a reveal ceremony, and the audio from that ceremony is something all of us should aspire to when you have, this is a gender reveal of his new child. Something all of us should aspire to have when you have your friends around for that, because it's really, truly remarkable. He was so excited to get a baby boy. Listen here. Great for Domingo Germán and the Germans. That's absolutely awesome. Go on Twitter, search Domingo Germán gender reveal, and you'll see the video of him obviously hitting the balloon and then just running around like as fast as he could, jumping around like a kid. So exuberant. It was pretty cool. So yeah, happy for the Germans. But without further ado, it's time for my interview with Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect, now with the Reading Fightin Phils. Stick around after the interview. What's cooking and so much more comes up. What's cooking? We'll talk some Chase Utley, Oakland Athletics, a little bit of New York Mets, and so much more. But yes, Darick Hall joins the Hot Stove Cast right here. Joining the Hot Stove Cast is a 2016 14th round pick out of Dallas Baptist University. He is a South Atlantic League MVP. He's a prospect in the Philadelphia Phillies organization. He now plays first base for the Reading Fightin Phils. Darick Hall is kind enough to give the show a few minutes of his time. Darick, thanks so much for your time. How you doing?
Oh, doing good. Thanks for having me.
Darick, so it's known that since your days at Dallas Baptist, you've pursued a more launch angle based swing. It's public knowledge that you're likely to hit the ball higher and farther if you go out and get it, if you will. You've talked about this online or in articles, etc. As you've progressed in the minors, what steps have you taken to help positively impact your swing progression?
I think swing progression is honestly a lot of like what you do in practice. You obviously practice how you want to hit the ball, but a lot of it is approach. You have to get a ball that you can elevate, or you have to know yourself and know what pitches you can do damage with. And that's a lot of what the minor leagues is for, is to just learn what balls that you can do damage with and what you can't.
Now you're a power. You kind of hinted at this, but you're a power hitter who doesn't necessarily always try to hit for power all the time. You're selective, and you're actually trying to increase your walks, too, from what I read. The Phillies actually lead the league in walks. You talked about being more selective. What are you learning in that regard as far as pitch selection goes?
I would consider myself a very aggressive hitter, but over the course of just getting older and getting to higher levels, it's being able to walk is really a skill and a talent that you have to learn. You have to know when to pass the baton. And I think that's something that we really key on, because if you look at the trend in the big leagues, it's balls you square up, walks, and strikeouts. Obviously, like, walks are huge now because pitchers, they necessarily don't pitch to contact all the time. They're going for the strikeout. They're pitching backwards. They're going for the swings and misses. And as a hitter, we have to know that and understand that these guys aren't going to just lay one in there for you to hit.
All right, so Darick, it's a 2-strike count. What's your approach?
2 strikes. I'm still looking for a pretty good pitch, but I'm not necessarily trying to, drive it out of the park. I'm just trying to hit it on the barrel. It doesn't matter if it's on the ground, in the air. When I'm up there, it's like offensive defense in a way. It's like I'm trying to get a good swing off, but I'm opening my zone up a little bit. I'm just trying to hit the ball hard.
He's an aggressive hitter. He hunts baseballs. That's not the only hunting he does, but we'll get to that later in the interview. Talking with Phillies first base prospect Darick Hall. He's a member of the Reading Fightin Phils. Darick, are there any current players' games you try to emulate?
Recently, it's kind of somebody I look at was Adrian Gonzalez a lot in the last few years, because I thought he has a simple swing. We both kind of have leg kicks, kind of similar body types. He's a little bit shorter than I am, but he's real smooth and easy to baseball, especially when he was younger.
Yeah.
And he was a really good guy I like to watch. Somebody that I really pay attention to now is JD Martinez, because obviously he's a great hitter, but that dude has a great approach, and he has a super simple swing. There's really not much to it, and that's something that every hitter is after. Something that's just super easy, repeatable, and that it can be consistent on hitting line drives.
He's got that strength too, much like yourself. And Adrian Gonzalez, that swing, man, you said it. Especially when he was younger, that was just beautiful. It really was. It just made it look easy. Anyway, by the way, Darick is a left-handed batter. Darick, sticking to baseball here, do you have any pregame rituals, superstitions, any motions you go through?
No, not really. To be honest, I try to be as consistent as possible. I try to do the same things every day, as far as I don't really mix it up and wear different cleats or do different, wrist tapes. The thing I do every game is during the national anthem, I always say a prayer. That's kind of it gets me, where I need to be, and it's just something that I've always done, and being a believer, it just kind of frees me up, because baseball has always been a little bit different for me. I feel like I'm playing for a higher purpose, I play to glorify God. I want my actions on the field and just what I want to, glorify His attributes and the people that got me here too. And that's something that I've always tried to do on the field, and that's why I might not show too much emotion or, negative. It's just my goal is to just make those people happy and to glorify God.
Wow. So I understand you just said it. Faith is a big part of your game. That's known. It's written. Darick, in what ways has faith had a profound impact on your journey toward becoming a big leaguer?
Well, the thing I've always realized is that, God's always He has a plan for you. And the thing is I always know no matter what, it's going to be okay. I know if I'm 0 for 20, I know that no matter what, it's going to be okay. Whether His plan is for me to be a big leaguer or to do something else, I trust that, whatever He decides or whatever He wants me to do, it's going to happen, and I'm going to be happy with it.
Jose Bautista once had an 0 for 27, and, anything's possible. We're talking with first base prospect Darick Hall with the Philadelphia Reading Phillies. Darick, you talked about faith. I'm going to get to that in a second, but you're in Reading now, like I said. You had a college teammate, Austin Listy, from Dallas Baptist. By the way, the Phillies also have David Martinelli, who you've played with. They also drafted Eric White, who was also your teammate. They had drafted him this year. You've played with all these guys from your college in the Philly system. And from what I understand, you and Austin Listy are literally, quote, together all the time. This is his quote, end quote. You even took this mission, speaking of faith, out to Curacao, where you preached gospel and faith to children, orphanages. You played baseball clinics on gravel fields. You played games versus the Curacao national team. I mean, that just sounds like an experience of a lifetime. Tell me about it.
Yeah, Curacao was really neat. It was something that I had no idea going in. It was about halfway, I would say about a month in the fall. Coach Heath kind of brought us together and was like, hey, every 4 years, I think it's every 4 years, they do a mission trip. And it was, my first year going in. It was something that, I've never really done. I've never been able to really go on foreign soil and do any kind of mission trips. So, it was... I tell you what, it was a grind, because we were up 6 o'clock eating breakfast, and we're on the bus, and we're doing camps all day, and then after camps all day, and that's a different heat. We've all been to Florida for the most part, and that's hot, but getting down there close to the equator, that's hot, and it was really cool. And the thing that made it just the most like kind of meaningful is to see how people with nothing are so happy. Like, as Americans, we have everything. Like, we have, even the people that don't have as much have more than the people down there. And those are some of the happiest people. The kids were happy. I mean, they were just happy to be alive and just happy that we were there to play ball, and that's something that is really touching to see that. And I think like one of the cool things was during the camps, one of the kids was actually saved. He professed Jesus as a savior, and that made the trip right there 100% worth it. Just being able to help people, but that right there was huge. And it was kind of cool. Like, so we would talk, and then they would have a translator talking Papiamentu. That's their language. It's like
one more time. What is that?
I think it's Papiamentu.
Okay.
It's got like combination of three languages, because it was, it was colonized. So it's like they have like English, French, Spanish, and it's really unique. We actually got to go to one of the churches down there, and it was funny because like you look up on the screen, and like during the songs there'd be like an English word, a Spanish word, a word you'd never heard of, and then it was like all mixed. It was really strange. And a lot of the people down there can speak three languages just naturally by speaking the one language.
Wow. Just incredible. It's really, really something how you said it was touching how the people there, they're so happy, and yet they don't necessarily have that much. And it's inspiring. It really should. It's really incredible. So would you say that part where the kid professed Jesus, if you will, was that your favorite part of the trip, or what was your favorite part of the trip?
Oh, it was definitely like the most meaningful part of the trip. I think the thing was too is that group of guys that we had was, it was a special group, because like we kind of just banded together. Like, we weren't supposed to be very good, because we lost a lot of the really good players to the draft the year before, some seniors, and at that time we still weren't very good. I still remember we lost twice to the national team, and those guys hadn't even been playing baseball. And I think one of the most touching part was just kind of that trip really brought us together, I think, and really got to know each other, because we had a bunch of new teammates. Like, I was a junior. We had quite a few junior college transfers. Like, I was one, and it really kind of like made us more tight knit, and saw like really how the program is, and what we're about, and what we're going to be about. And I think that was a huge trip for us too as a team.
It's really amazing. That's the kind of trip that really can just give you so much perspective and leave such a huge impact on your life. Speaking with Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect with the Reading Fightin Phils. Darick, would you say that giving is a big part of things like of what means a lot to you?
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, like if you look at the game we play, like, yeah, we play because we love the game and like it's the game, but like the only reason we're here is because of the fans and the people that enjoy watching baseball. Like, if people don't enjoy watching baseball or enjoy going to games, then players don't get to play. And I think that we have to always give back to the fan base and the people that support us. I think that's being a player. That's all of it. You have to be able to give back to the people, because being selfish, it's kind of like where you think the game is just about the game. It goes way deeper than the game.
Wow. Okay. Speaking with Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect, with the Reading Fightin Phils. He is a first base product, but anyway, moving on here in the Hot Stove Cast. Darick, when did you realize? When did you know you wanted to pursue baseball?
Well, I kind of grew up in a baseball family. Both my uncles at the time. I was about 4 or 5 when I kind of really. I played, when I was a little kid. I don't really remember as much until I was about 4 or 5. But both of my uncles were really good baseball players. And Shane, it was kind of during the time my uncle Shane was going through the draft process. And Lad, my other uncle, was kind of the same thing. And my grandfather was their dads, and he loved baseball. He has a burning passion for baseball. And I just kind of played. I grew up playing, and I just kind of ran with it. I looked to those guys who were ahead of me, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be drafted. I want to pursue professional baseball.
What wisdom has your family? You have multiple family members who have, like you said, have been in the game. What wisdom have they bestowed on you as you make your way through the minors?
Just not to, both my uncles are just kind of, really relax, and now that they can watch, one thing they always say is just not to like press, and that's something that I've never tried to do. It's just like, it's kind of cool being in the spot that I'm at. It's cool because you can just play free, and you should play free. Like you right now, it's like there's no reason to press. Like you just need to work your way, to try to become a big leaguer, and you can't press your way into doing that. You have to learn the game. The game's gonna give you blows. You're gonna struggle. You're gonna fail. But if you look at it as a learning experience, honestly, if you take if you take the results and you're true to yourself and you try to learn from them, that's how you become a big leaguer, in my opinion, and my family. That's kind of what we talk about. If you take them and just shake them off and don't learn from your mistakes and you keep making the same ones, that's how you stay in the minors for so long sometimes, and you never ascend to the big leagues.
Well said. Speaking with first base prospect for the Philadelphia Phillies, Darick Hall. Darick, you mentioned mistakes. I actually heard that Gabe Kapler, whenever he makes a mistake, he writes it down and he rereads the list perhaps every day, and so he never makes that mistake again. But yeah, Darick Hall, man, not making mistakes out here, saying a lot of the right things. I'm happy to speak with him here on the Hot Stove Cast. Darick, let's move on a little bit. Baseball-wise, you talked about your family a bunch. When you were growing up, not your family. When you were growing up, what players did you look up to?
I think the more I learned about it, in the era that I grew up, a ton of us liked Ken Griffey Jr. Like I grew up playing Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest, and I loved watching him play a little bit I could, and that's somebody I always try to mimic. That was a great era. That was the kind of the ending part of the steroid era, a fun time to watch.
Sure.
So you got to see the McGuires, you got to see all those guys back then, the Sosas, and I think somebody I loved watching Ken Griffey, how he played and how he just kind of was always relaxed, and just it looked like he always had fun, because sometimes with all the work and all the thinking and all that, sometimes it may look like the guys aren't having fun, and I think that he made it look like he made it appear that he was always having fun.
He had the sweetest swing, man. He was also my favorite growing up. Man, just what a professional. I mean, if he never got hurt, he could have very well been the greatest of all time. But moving on here with Darick Hall. Darick, gosh, so much to get to. Have you ever watched somebody in your progression and said to yourself, wow, this player's going to be a star?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, the team we're playing has some pretty good players on it. I was thinking even last night, like watching Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit, it was like, that's the difference between a minor league and a big league hitter. Like, you just watch his actions and his moves and, like, how he goes about pitches, and no pitches stress him out. There's never, he never looks nervous. He never looks like he's caught off guard, and just, like, the freedom that he takes to the plate. And it's something that, obviously he's in the minors for a reason. It's probably still they're trying to progress him as a, more of a third baseman, I think. But, man, watching those guys, it's like, the bar, we're pushing the bar to the limit, but it's crazy to see somebody that could just hit every day in the big leagues and see how they do it a little bit different.
He's really incredible. I've also had a chance to look at him. You watch him hit, and he does all the things you said. He doesn't try to do too much. He stays within himself. He exhibits big league poise, but at the same time, he swings hard, and it's incredible. That guy is so special. I'm going to talk more about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Later in the show with the Fisher Cats broadcaster. Stay tuned. But still speaking here with Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect with the Reading Phillies. Darick, you had a 2.09 ERA your sophomore year of college. It does seem like 2018 is the year of the position player pitching in the big leagues anyway. You're going to the big leagues, right? There's no other way, right?
I mean, yeah, I hope so.
Okay, good. So let's say you're in the bigs and your name gets called to pitch. How excited would you be for that moment?
Oh, I've been wanting that moment ever since I quit pitching. I love to pitch. It was something too. It's like, I mean, I've never been able to be fortunate enough to play another position, just because speed lacks a little bit. But pitching was fun because it was like, it fed right into my competitiveness. I loved getting up there and tone it up, and I think it was fun. Like, I was always a strike thrower, and I threw 3 pitches, so I could always mix well. And that was just one of my favorites, is getting up there, and it felt like on every team I was on, I felt like almost like a weapon. Like if I wasn't like getting them on the mound, I was getting them at the plate, or I like that edge that I had.
What's your repertoire?
So I was heavy sink, and I threw a fastball, a changeup, and a slider. My changeup was arguably my best pitch, but my slider got really good my sophomore and junior year. I was always kind of a slow spin guy, so you always saw the spin, but the thing is it moved a lot, and I threw it at a good velocity, so it still played well. And my changeup was I kind of have a natural like 3/4 pronation kind of throwing. The way I kind of throw, I just kind of turn the ball over like a lot. So it fed right into my changeup too. Like I could really get over the top of my changeup, and it almost was like a screwball. Like I would throw it to righties right down the middle and run it into their back legs a little bit, and lefties I would throw it right down the middle and run it off the plate. And that was something that I always had fun doing.
He's thought this through. I mean, you never know. You could see that day when he gets his name called as a pitcher. Talking with first base prospect in the Philadelphia Phillies organization, Darick Hall. Darick, let's bring it back to your family. You said that something you've always wanted to do is be a firefighter, which runs in your family. Tell me more about the firefighting in your family and why you want to be a firefighter.
So when both of my uncles were in high school, what they would do is this thing is called hot shot duty. So in the summer, when California's always burning down, Arizona's always burning down, because of lightning and campfires that don't get put out and stuff, and they have these fires for months. They would go during the summer and join hot shot crews, which assemble just during the summer, and they would go fight fires. And that's kind of how it started. And my uncle Shane, he stayed with the Forest Service, and he became an engine boss, which he mans the truck and kind of tells the guys what to cut, like cut back fire lines and different stuff. He's almost like they're kind of the leader of the group. And Lad kind of went from the Forest Service and wanted to be into the actual firefighter, just your inner city firefighter. So he became EMT and then an engineer and then a paramedic, and now he's a captain. So out where I'm at, there's a lot of the jobs, especially in where I live, is law enforcement and fire. And land management, like Bureau of Land Management, who cuts trails, keeps and stuff like that, builds fences on public land. So there's a lot of that, because there's a lot of public land in Arizona, and I live in a small town, and that's just something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and I know I'm going to do that someday.
Wow, you heard it first. Darick Hall will be a firefighter someday. Darick Hall, you said that you have multiple loves, and firefighting is one of them, but you have multiple loves. From what I gather, hunting and seeing land is another one of them. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, hunting and fishing. Yeah. Hunting's, obviously I love hunting, but fishing is my favorite. I like to, I fish tournaments in the off-season. I compete at our local lakes. We have bass tournaments all off-season long. And that's something, too, that I kind of, I obviously think about the future a little bit, but when I'm firefighting, I want to fish professionally all around Arizona and hopefully, get big enough to go other places. But there's a ton of circuits in the state that I would like to do when I'm at home.
What's your favorite fish to eat?
Favorite fish to eat? I do love catfish. I love trout. I don't eat bass a lot because I like to catch them. So especially I have some small lakes at home, so I always put them back after I catch them. So you're not denting the population. But yeah, I remember this off season we were having a tough day bass fishing, and we went out and they just said they had double stocked the lake with trout because the one lake was having mercury problems. So they took the batch that was supposed to go there and put it in the one lake, and man, there was so many trout, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel. So we caught us a stringer of trout and took it back and ate them that night. And it was good, fresh fish.
Man, this is making me hungry. Ballpark Chowdown also coming up later in the show. Speaking with Darick Hall, first base prospect in the Philadelphia Phillies organization. So you're a self-proclaimed outdoorsman. Tell me about your ideal day, hunting on land and fishing.
Yeah, so starting out, so every year, really, we put in for deer, and I try to put in for elk. Last year, I actually got drawn for elk, which is really tough to draw. But I had to go to speed camp for the Phillies, so I had to donate my tag, which I mean, it was good going to speed camp. But man, I really want to get on the elk hunt. But so,
By the way, speed camp is what? Sorry.
speed camp's just a little camp they run. It's really to check on bodies, and like they bring in some instructors for like mechanics, like running mechanics and just quickness and explosiveness. Cool, it was cool. But so I could put you on like a little trip that we had this off season.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So in Arizona, you can only shoot one deer a year, and there's an archery season that starts in September and it ends at the end of September. And the archery season that ends, it starts in December, ends in December, and then rifle season's from like October to November. So I had got one previously in November, so I didn't really have a tag, so I was helping my buddies, and he pulled his camper out, and we stayed for like a week and a half and just trying to fill his tag. And so something that we do, so the way we kind of go about it is in Arizona there's tons of mountains and it's pretty open. It's not covered in trees. It's like you can get up and on a hill and actually like sit down and look out for miles. And we get our binoculars with tripods, and you just sit there and you just look and look and look and pick through cuts and valleys and like open and look for these deer. And yeah, so like we hiked up every morning. We'd hike up this hill and look, and we're looking over because we're hunting mule deer. Mule deer live in the flatland in Arizona. They don't really live in the mountains. The whitetail live in the mountains. So we're looking over these flats and like. And one thing that's kind of cool too is a lot of Arizona, there's multiple species. So like we would, there's javelinas in the area, there's coyotes, there's mule deer, and sometimes the whitetail live around the mule deer. But that's kind of something that that's how we kind of go about it, and it's more like a spot and stock. So like you find them, and we'll get radio, like we have radios. Mm-hmm. So whoever's going after the deer, like he has like a headset, and like you talk to him and tell him what's going on, because a lot of times when you're stalking them, you're kind of just walking them into where they are, hoping that you get them close enough that they can take it into their own hands, because you got to walk them into where, and the wind's got to be right, because if the wind's not right, they're going to smell you. So like,
no way.
It's a ton of communication. It goes deep. It's a little bit different than it is out here. Out here, you kind of just sit in a tree stand. Out there, it's like, you have to kind of go about. You have to be smart about it. Real smart. So. You're going out there, they're stalking them, and like you're talking to them the whole way, and when they finally get close enough, that's kind of when they take it into their own hands, and the only time you really talk to them is like when something, maybe there's a deer you didn't see that's close, that they might spook, that they don't see, and stuff like that. It's a really good time,
Well, it's Hunting 101 here with Darick Hall here on the Hot Stove Cast. Darick, obviously, we talked about fishing a little bit earlier. What about your ideal day fishing? And we've got a player over here telling Darick to hit the cages. We're gonna wrap up here with Darick soon. But Darick, tell me about your ideal day fishing.
All right, so I already have a fishing trip planned at the end of the season.
Of course you do.
So ideally, when it gets a little bit cooler and at home, we start doing day fishing. So I'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go pick up whoever I want. Sun will usually come up around like 6:15, 6:20. So we'll wake up 4:30. I'll go pick them up whoever I'm going with, and we'll go hit Circle K and get whatever we need for the day. Our Gatorades, our sandwiches, our water, our chips, whatever we're gonna eat in the morning. And it's about an hour away. So gas up the boat if we need gas in the boat, truck. That's our spot. We always go to Circle K. So we'll hit Circle K, and then so we drive out, and it's about an hour from my house. And then it depends on the day. If we're fishing a tournament, we're getting jacked out of our minds in the car. Like we're jamming. We're getting fired up, because like there's nothing better in the world than a fishing tournament. I'll tell you what, I love it. And even so, like even if we're not fishing a tournament, we're still getting hyped in the car. Like we're excited. Like it's a ton of fun. Like we're driving the lake at 5:30 with our hair on fire, ready to get there and catch some fish. So we're driving, and you drive down this huge hill to get to the lake, and a lot of times we get there, pull in, and the marina, it's kind of cool in the morning. There's nobody ever there that early, so we a lot of times try to get there before the sun's up. And I'll fish, especially if I don't have anything going, like early in the off season, before like you're kind of giving your bodies a rest. We'll sit there sun up till sundown and just fish all day.
Lots of sunscreen, right?
Lots of sunscreen. I did get away from that when I was young, but I've been back on the sunscreen train. But yeah, we'll go out there and fish all day and just have a great time.
Nothing better in the world than fishing. You heard it from Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect with the Reading Fightin Phils. Darick, I must attest, there really is very, very few things in the world better than fishing. Really, oh man, damn, I might just get up right here and leave the stadium and go do it. But anyway, Darick, obviously you're a big hunter. We talked about this. Okay, let's play a little scenario here. Darick, the zombies are coming. Okay, now folks, remember he's a hunter, right? So, what's your go-to firearm, and what's your strategy? And if no firearm, what's your strategy?
Well, all right, if zombies are coming, obviously you know ahead of time, so I'm going to get me a pair of night vision goggles, which, you know, obviously so you can see, you can protect yourself at night. But I'm going to have my SIG on me, and I'm going to have my AR-15. And I figure if I have enough clips like that, I'll be just fine. And the cool thing is a lot of the camo I have from hunting I'd be able to use and would not be able to be seen. But I think where I live is actually pretty ideal because we have mountains right there, and you know, obviously you have the lake too, so it's like you could go sit on your boat with your family and you can drive away, unless there's that many of them, you know. And I think, but yeah, that's kind of my go-to.
Unless it's like Game of Thrones, I'm not. Oh, they don't even know how to swim. I'm not sure zombies know how to swim, so it sounds like he's pretty set up. But Darick, tomorrow is your birthday. Happy birthday!
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Now, this show is actually going to air on Thursday. Now, are you a big fan of, like, Back to the Future, like space-time continuum stuff?
A little bit. You know, I've kept up with it.
Okay, so, Darick, we've got the power to transcend time here, okay? Obviously, when this interview airs, you'll be 23. Darick, if you could say anything to your 22-year-old self right now, okay, what would you say?
Shoot. Let me think. That's a good one. If I could say anything to myself when I'm 22. I'm trying to think when I turned 22 last year. Oh, I remember I was on a bus ride from Charleston going to Lakewood last year.
You're 23 now. You're talking to your 22-year-old self.
I'm trying to think.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question. I'm assuming that you're thinking we're making mistakes because we're going to have to tell ourselves not to make a mistake. No. I would say just to be in the moment all the time. Don't, you know, as you know, we've talked earlier, I think about the future a lot, and I'm kind of a planner. It's like sometimes you catch yourself being out of the moment. So I think, like, especially with this, baseball is always like a season of your life. Like, you can't play baseball forever. And you don't ever know how short or how long your career is going to be. So, like, you might as well enjoy it while you're here because, you know, you can't play it forever. And, you know, it's kind of like if you don't enjoy it, it'll be gone before you know it.
Wow, it's profound. It's the magic of podcasting and pre-production right there. But Darick, geez, man, you could tell that to your 62-year-old self, or that's really profound stuff. Darick Hall, first baseman for the Reading Fightin Phils, rather. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
That was so much fun speaking with Darick Hall, Phillies first base prospect. Guy can mash, guy can hit. Guy does a little bit of everything. Keep your eyes on Darick Hall in the future. It was fun. He said there's nothing better than a fishing tournament. I'll tell you what. I do love fishing. It really is. It's like the ultimate R&R. Man, I'm sitting there talking with him. Like, I even said during the interview, I'm like, I think I'm just gonna get up and leave and go fishing. But yeah, he talked about the zombies and how. Yeah, I would have never guessed night vision goggles would be your first go-to, but you know what? If an invasion were coming, I think Darick Hall is one of the first people. You know, he mentioned he carries he's locked and loaded. He mentioned I think he's one of the first people I'd ask to protect me in a zombie apocalypse. He seems pretty ready. But yeah, it was. I mean, he gave some really, really sensational answers. Particularly the answer to, you know, turning back the clock and space-time continuum, on how he just live in the moment and don't try to make too much of it. And yeah, I mean, he said how making that kid in Curacao basically, I don't know the exact terminology, but profess Jesus was the highlight. I mean, this he's grounded. He's got a bright future. And I'm very excited to see what he does. He in a game that's transitioning toward homers and walks and lower strikeout numbers. For a power hitter, he doesn't strike out necessarily as much as most power hitters. Typically, your biggest power hitter strike out 25, 27 or more percent of the time, rarer more. But this guy's only striking out 20 or 19% of the time. Somebody to watch for the Phillies. Obviously, they have Carlos Santana at first base for the next 2 years after. I mean, they could trade him. You never know. But it's something to keep an eye on, Darick Hall. But yes, thank you so much to, by the way, Michael Ventola, Greg Caserta, Tim Hoffmeister at Reading. They do a sensational job as far as accommodating the press go and just putting on the show altogether in general. You need to get on out to Reading. I've talked about this on the show before. It's really a baseball oasis. I talked with Michael in episode 104. It's a baseball mecca of sorts. And from top to bottom, I mean, they sponsor foul balls. For God's sake. It's really incredible what they do. I tell you what, that game the other night started 50 minutes late, okay? And they still had an attendance just shy of 4,000, okay? It was disgusting. I was there from like 2 o'clock on, okay? 2:30 rather. And it was gross. And it was raining. The field was drenched. I didn't think that, the people in the press box had their doubts as to whether the game would get in, but they got it in the whole game. And Jeff Singer was pretty fired up, striking out Vladimir Guerrero Jr. up 3 with 2 runners on. So very exciting times in Reading. But yeah, without further ado, this is the Hot Stove Cast. So let's get to the current events. It's time for What's Cookin'.
Supper's ready. Come on, y'all. Been slaving over this for hours.
You gonna eat your tots?
I'll have what she's having.
Yep, what's cooking, everybody? Chase Utley returned to Philadelphia for what will be his last time as a professional regular season player. It's not impossible that he doesn't play here in the playoffs, given the way the season's playing out. But yes, the Philadelphia faithful came out in droves and gave the man his respected due, as they always do for the ones who play their hearts out here year after year after year. And so I've got the audio. They had a 50-second ovation for Utley. I've got that audio right here. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but here's a little taste of what the Philly fans gave the man, as they call him in Philadelphia, on his final at bat, or his first at bat of his final appearance in Philadelphia. Utley walked up to the plate with his vintage classic cashmere. I don't think he's gone a single at bat in the major leagues. Deviating from that, I mean, people in Philadelphia, you hear the song Cashmere, you think of Chase Utley. There's just no two ways about that. Moving on here in What's Cooking, let's talk about the Oakland A's for a second, because they are cooking with gas. Last night, Chris Davis hit 2 home runs, including two-out home runs last night, to give the A's another comeback win in Texas, 6-5. Here's the go-ahead Chris Davis home run call, courtesy of NBC Sports California.
Right field. Gallo!
No. Oh, my God.
Baby's gone. Are you kidding me?
I love that home run call because, let's be honest, what the hell was going on right there? You're kidding me. Oh, that was fantastic. But yeah, the Oakland A's are just absolutely raking right now. It's insane what they're doing. The night before, they closed a 10-2 deficit. They scored 8 runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and eventually won 13-10, scoring 3 runs in the top of the 10th. But just, it's absolutely absurd what the A's are doing. They're like these late game heroics that just nobody's really paying attention to, and just when you thought it wasn't possible, the Seattle Mariners might be out of a playoff spot, because the A's are surging. It's nuts what's going on. Let me get to the standings real quick. Oakland is let's see, they are 1.5 games behind Seattle for the wild card. Oakland's 17 games over 500, and they just acquired Urias Familiar. They got a 5-game winning streak. They've won 8 of their last 10. the whole AL wildcard, the whole AL playoff picture really is just taking on a whole nother complexion. I mean, the A's are only 3.5. They're only 6.5 back of the Astros. It's not an insurmountable hill to climb. It's really not. It's only July 26th, so wow. Who the heck knows? But yeah, Oakland is absolutely killing it. Like I said, I think I said this. They got Familia. That's just another steal for them. That's typical Billy Bean. I don't want to say mind games, but trickeration, as some people say. But speaking of the Mets, let's talk about the Mets. Yoenis Cespedes needs multiple surgeries to fix his heels. For a minute, he had Mets fans on their heels, but really, I think they all knew the inevitable. It's actually really weird what's going on with him because he's got calcification in both of his heels. He's got like buildup, right? So he has to get one surgery at a time. He gets a surgery, takes 2 months to like let it heal halfway or something, or like part way, and then he gets surgery in the other heel. Have you ever heard of anything like that in your life? Imagine a major league athlete coming back from such a thing. I've heard some people say they're optimistic he can come back for the start of next season, but I mean, just let's be honest. Based on this guy's history, I mean, how realistic is that expectation? It's a shame. That's a lot of money the Mets have invested in him. I think it's something we're in the ballpark of like 58 or 59.5 million, right in that range for the next 2 years. That's 19 and 20. He will not live up to that contract. It's safe to say that. But yeah, he's just had way too many injuries. It's so much talent. It's a real shame. But on a more positive Mets note, Jeff McNeil received his call up to the major leagues this season. You've heard me talk about him on this show and on my social feed. In his second go around in AAA, he had, after 2017 at bats, he had a 427 on base. He's slugging 600. He simply put up numbers at every single level. In 57 AA Rumble Ponies games this season, he had 14 homers. I'm really excited to see what he does. I heard rumors that teams are checking in on Asdrubal Cabrera, who kind of plays a first base. He's kind of in an infield utility role with the Mets right now, playing some second base. But McNeil's not starting right now, and that's not right. They need to be getting him everyday reps. McNeil's ready. I mean, you look at the numbers; he's absolutely ready. So, the prospect fan in me is rooting for Cabrera to get traded because I want to see McNeil get these reps. He's a special player. I'm really looking forward to what he's doing. You'll hear me talk about some stats later in this segment about just how he stacks up versus the best of the best in the Eastern League, among others. So, I told you I'd talk trades and stuff, but I said I'm gonna do this next week because I want to be able to just cover the whole thing. And I promised on social that I would do a deep dive of the Philly system. I'm not gonna do that this week. However, don't stop listening yet. I am gonna talk some Phillies prospects. However, I'm gonna dedicate an entire 10 minutes on next week's show because I was looking over it, and the Philly system, top to bottom, is so deep, and I think underrated. I've heard they're in the top 5 on some sites, but honestly, I think they're top 3, and they could even be the best. I'd have to do a little more research to decide if they're the best of the best, but I'm telling you, the Phillies, top to bottom, are underrated. I've said before, I don't like prospect rankings pretty much anywhere. They're notoriously unreliable. However, Vlad Jr. is certainly the number 1 prospect. I don't think there's any denying that. However, there's a lot of talent that doesn't get seen. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's some politics involved that we don't know about. I certainly don't know about. But there were, even just today, J. Happ was traded for, I believe, Brandon Drury and Billy McKinney of the Rail Riders in Scranton. McKinney has game. I like that trade actually for the Blue Jays. I think they did a good job. I'm not really sure about J. Happ. I know his velocity is kind of dipping, and when his velocity goes, his game is not the same. But yeah, next week I'll talk trades because basically when the trade deadline's over, you get a much clearer picture of what the playoff picture's like. So it's a great time to talk playoffs too. So next week anticipate the trade deadline, the playoff picture, and the Phillies minor league system to piggyback off this long Darick Hall interview episode. But continuing, I told you I saw the Fisher Cats, so I saw the three-headed monster of former major leaguers' sons who now play for the Double-A Fisher Cats of the Blue Jays, that being the aforementioned Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Cavan, Biggio, and Bichette Jr. Let's start with Vlad Jr. I am simply running, and I'm going to talk to Bob Lipman later in a few minutes about Vlad Jr., but I'm simply running out of superlatives for this guy. Everything he does is remarkable. He swings with poise and purpose. He connects and makes great contact often. Like, he doesn't swing hard, but because he's naturally built, okay, he's built. Like, some of the best big league hitters I've ever seen, like Daniel Murphy, I saw up close in Harrisburg, and I was absolutely shocked at how big his lower half was. Like, you can't see it on TV because everybody looks big, but it was undeniably larger than anyone else there, even like Tim Tebow. He's bigger than Tim Tebow. Actually, I don't know about that. I take that back. That's not a fair comparison. But nonetheless, Daniel Murphy is a phenomenal hitter, and his lower half is enormous. And it reminded me of Vlad Jr. because Vlad Jr. has this build. Remember, Vlad Jr. is 19, and he's putting up these insanely great stats. Like, he's hitting 403 in 257 Double-A plate appearances. It's insane. Like, this guy, Vlad Jr. at 19, he has the body of a college senior fullback, okay? Like, he's just big. And like, he swings hard, but it's because of his frame. It's not because he's trying to swing hard. Like, he could step up there and try to swing as hard as he wanted. He could probably hit the ball I don't know about 500, but easily 475 feet. Seriously. I wish I were exaggerating. I'm not. He's so massive. Really, he just gets up there and tries to hit good line drive contacts every time, and they just happen to go over the fence because he has this build. But frankly, before I get to the stats, I think there's a lot of people who agree with me in that I think he's going to have a better career than his father. I don't even think that's disputable at this point. Honestly, like, I don't see it. If there's a bet, I don't want to, let's not get carried away. But seriously, I think he'll have a better career. The numbers, again, speak for themselves. 257 plate appearances, a 403 average, 449 on base, and a 655 slugging. Guys, this guy's 19 in Double-A. Not... Yeah, you have to let that sink in. I mean, it's really insane. A minimum of 200 at-bats. He leads all of Double-A, in batting average by 66 points. Well, actually, this is the Eastern League. I take that back. This is just the Eastern League. Nonetheless, 66 points. He's first in all these categories. Like, don't get it twisted. He's first in on-base percentage. At 449, ahead of Peter Alonso, who I talk about all the time, at 440, and Jeff McNeil are the next two, coincidentally, at 402. McNeil's there. He's tops in slugging at 655. McNeil is at 626. Zach Green, Reading Phillies prospect now with the Iron Pigs in AAA, checks in at 578, and Alonso at 573, and Damek Tomscha at 556. I like Tomscha's game. We shall see with him, but he got some looks in the bigs this season. He wasn't looking too comfortable, so they sent him back down. And Zach Green simply swinging better, so they put Green in AAA and Damek Tomscha in AAA. But I'll tell you what, you bring up Green this season, I think he can handle the challenge. If the Phillies wanted to trade Franco, I wouldn't necessarily be upset as a Phillies fan. I think it's a rational course of action. But going back to the Fisher Cats here, Bichette, he's a little more of a project. He hit 323 in 40 high A games last season. He's hitting 268 in 94 2018 Double A games. But what sticks out to me the most, I remember he's a shortstop prospect, but what sticks out to me the most is his build. I saw him up close, very close. I'm sitting in the front row. He's listed at 6'2", and I'm gonna be honest, 200 is probably generous. He's probably 185, and even that might be a little generous, to be perfectly honest. But he could be 180, maybe 175. But when this guy fills out, he's going to be a force. And if he could be a 20 home run guy with a great average, like a 300, at the shortstop position, maybe even 25 home run, 28 in his peak. I don't know if he hits many more than 30, unless he really bulks up. But he's got great potential, and it's obvious he's got the genes, he's got a lot of stuff working for him. I mean, remember, he's only 20 years old, so you don't want to get too carried away. A 20-year-old hitting 268 in Double-A is nothing to snarl at, if you will. Excuse me. But moving on here, I'll talk about Cavan Biggio actually in batting cleanup because he leads the Eastern League in home runs. I believe actually it's all of Double-A in home runs at 21. But I will get to him later. But a couple another Blue Jays system guys of note. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. He's turning into a quality hitter. He's in the bigs now. Keep your eye on him. He's a middle infielder. Good player, talented. Just keep your eye on him. Another prospect of note. He hit 302 and 358 Double-A plate appearances with the Fisher Cats. He was an Eastern League All-Star. That's Jonathan Davis. He's 26 though. It's a little older. But he's a young 26. He's like 26 in 2 months. He plays a mean center field. Like I saw him in the All-Star game Eastern League, and he made it a spectacular play to start the game. Absolutely spectacular. He steals bases, doesn't hit a lot of home runs. He's kind of like a Kevin Pilar type. Pilar, rather. He's in AAA now, though, Davis. He's hitting 333 in 10 games. If he could get himself in that 15, 20 home run range with all those steals, he could be a viable, productive big leaguer. He's got to bulk up though. That's the thing with this guy, and he's kind of running out of time, to be perfectly honest. He's listed at 5'8", 190, which is not small size wise, but height. It's not what you need for power. Like if this guy can get up to 210 or even 205 and really work on those mechanics to get the ball, drive the ball to the fence more. He doesn't even have to hit it over the fence. He just has to get it. He has to hit it far because with his speed, he can get extra bases, no problem. But he has to do a little better. So keep your eye on him. I don't really, the Blue Jays would have a really disgusting outfield if they had Pilar and him patrolling it. They also just traded for McKinney, so who the heck knows what's going to happen there. So yeah. But for more Fisher Cats, and Blue Jays prospects in general, but predominantly Fisher Cats, I spoke with Bob Lipman, play-by-play broadcaster for the Fisher Cats in Reading, to talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s greatness, Bo Bichette, Cavan Biggio, and so much more Fisher Cats and the stadium up in New Hampshire. And check out our interview right here. Joining the Hot Stove Cast is the broadcaster for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, Bob Lipman, here to talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Fisher Cats, and more about New Hampshire Northeast Delta Dental Stadium. Bob, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you joining the program.
All right, no problem, Zach. Let's go.
Great to have you. Now, you have the privilege of calling games for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I mean, somebody paged Ted Williams. This guy is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is hitting 406 in 248 Double-A plate appearances. Just absurdly amazing. You get to watch this guy day in and day out. What about him sticks out most to you?
His ability to hit all pitches to all fields. There does not seem to be a way to beat him. And Zach, you point out I've been at this for a long time now, 15 years, and I've never been more excited about watching a Double-A bat as I am with Vladimir Guerrero this year. For those who were here last night in Reading, he turned some terrific defensive plays too, and he's a pretty polished 19-year-old ball player whose dad, by the way, is going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, this Sunday, Vladimir Guerrero will be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Speaking with Bob Lipman, broadcaster for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Bob, you mentioned his fielding. What part of Vlad Jr.'s game needs to be most improved, in your opinion?
There isn't much left. I think it's just understanding situations, where balls need to go, both in the field and when he's at bat. Other than that, you're not going to find a weak point in his game right now. Unfortunately, he missed a little over a month of the season with a knee injury, running out, trying to beat out an infield single, landed a little funny on the bag at first. That's the only thing that slowed him so far this year. He was on track to be the MVP of this league.
Yes, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., just, I said, absurdly amazing talent. Bob, you said earlier you broadcasted minor league baseball for 15 years now. Have you ever seen a more prolific minor league talent than Vladimir Guerrero? And if not, what players in your baseball viewing life does he compare to in your eyes?
He's one of the most complete. 15 years is a long time, so obviously there are a lot of ball players. I saw Ryan Howard when he played Double-A ball and was hitting home runs like they were going out of style, and you kind of knew that he was going to go on to the major leagues for the Philadelphia Phillies. Had a terrific career, but Vlad in recent times is a guy. who we knew was going to be a good one, and it turns out that way. On the pitching side, I've seen a few really good ones. Justin Verlander, I saw his Double-A debut at Northeast Delta Dental Stadium. He turned out to be a pretty good one. Watched Mookie Betts come through the Portland Sea Dogs. All, really, really good talent.
Speaking with Bob Lipman, broadcaster for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Bob, transitioning to the Fisher Cats, which players in the Fisher Cats, now they're in first place by 2 games in the Eastern League East standings. What players on the Fisher Cats should fans keep their eyes on down the stretch that'll continue to keep their chances of vaulting toward a division title intact?
Well, how about the other 2 sons of major leaguers that we have on the roster? It's not just Guerrero, but Cavan Biggio. His dad, Craig, is in the Hall of Fame. Bo Bichette's dad, Dante Bichette, was a prolific hitter. Bo has hit at every level of the game, and he's been a main part of our offense this year. Cavan Biggio's right there, second place in the Eastern League with 20 homers. He is second place in runs batted in. They're both great talents. And then a pitcher who has emerged here of late, and a guy who the fans here in Reading are scheduled to see tonight, T.J. Zoik out of the University of Pittsburgh. Tall guy, great downward plane sinker ball pitcher, very efficient, and has the looks of someone who's going to advance well beyond the Double-A level.
Wrapping up here with Bob Lipman, broadcaster for the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, the Toronto Blue Jays Double-A affiliate. Bob, for those who have never been to Northeast Delta Dental Stadium, what would you tell them to get them to come out to the stadium, and what promotions should Fisher Cats fans look forward to as the season comes to a close?
Fireworks are always a ton of fun. We're setting them off to music this year, and we do usually 3 shows a homestand. So Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. What we have is it's a modern ballpark with a really clean look. There are not a lot of signboards all over the place, with a giant hotel out in left center that kind of frames the landscape with the city's downtown right behind it. It's just a great place because there are no bad seats in the ballpark. So you come out, you can kind of pick wherever you want to be, enjoy a Double-A game.
Get on out there soon. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will only be there so much longer. Bob Lipman, thank you so much for your time.
All right, Zach, good to be with you.
Big thank you to Bob Lipman talking about the 3-headed monster that is the Fisher Cats of the Toronto Blue Jays, the Double-A team. Just really, they're fun to watch, man. Cavan, Biggio, homers. Bo Bichette, you never really... He's got good potential fielding. You never really know what you're going to get out of him on a given night. It's exciting in that respect. And then, what more is there to say about Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I don't want to say I feel like I'm watching a god when I see him play, but man, it's close. Like, I hate to go there, I really do. But seriously, like, other than Juan Soto, who is absolutely demolishing baseball pitching at 19 years old right now, who's frankly a very under talked about story, even as talked about as he is, the poise and what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is doing is it's like you're in the presence of a higher being. I do hate to go there, but it's so amazingly incredible what he's doing. Anyway, speaking of absolutely absurdly great baseball players, I want to lead off bringing the lumber with a guy by the name of Ohtani-san, who you, of course, have heard of.
Christ, Serrano. Have to wake up back.
Did you know that Shohei Ohtani's 158 at-bats, okay, he's got 9 home runs, and those 9 home runs go for an average of 423 feet? Digest that for a second. This guy's a rookie in Major League Baseball, and he's absolutely mashing home runs. If you see him hit home runs, they are not cheap by any means whatsoever. I think his first 2 home runs were 397 and 400, and then they are bonkers distance-wise after that. His highest 2 were 446, which he hit last night, and 449. When he hits a home run to center at Angel Stadium, the camera guy doesn't even pick it up. It goes so far. It's like at the top of the frame. It's unbelievable. I've got the call of Shohei Ohtani's or Ohtani-san's 446-foot blast from last night.
He'll skyward high and deep to right. Garcia's back. That is gone. Sayonara. Ohtani-san.
He's just gifted. There's very few more things to say about the guy. And as great as his bat is, he's learning. He's got some strikeout issues, but his pitching is like way better, and his bat is extraordinary. When this guy puts it all together, it will be really, really incredible. I still think he should have been on a National League team. They could have given him 3 good starts every week. I would have planned this whole year-round schedule around him to make sure he gets a minimum of 3 times in the lineup as a hitter. You can even sometimes get 4 based on the way off days play out. But he went to the American League. He whatever. But speaking of Angels, his teammate, number 27, has 27 home runs. Man, just to get to watch them night in and night out, I am kind of jealous of A's fans. I'm not usually jealous, but I mean, those guys are basically the two. I mean, Ohtani isn't the best at either hitting or pitching, but when you combine the factors of how good he is, you can put him among the best players in the game. I'm sorry if you disagree with that, but when you really think about it, you take a second, you dial it back, and you say to yourself, how talented is an individual? I don't think there's any doubt that Ohtani is among the best in the game. Trout speaks for himself, obviously. But speaking of 27, Vlad Jr., who I already talked about, but let's not talk about Vlad Jr. Let's talk about Cavan. Biggio, who leads AA with 21 home runs. He's tied with Bobby Bradley of the Indians. But what's interesting about Biggio's home runs is that he's walking 19.3% of the time and striking out 27% of the time. Okay, that's a pretty good ratio for a guy leading the league in homers. Okay, he's just 23. He's got room to grow. He's a 2016 fifth-round pick. He will make the big leagues soon. His time is coming. It's funny, the Phillies actually drafted him in the 29th round of the 2016 draft, but he opted to go to school at Notre Dame. Speaking of cleaning up, moving on here, I cleaned up a delicious, delicious, delicious chicken Caesar wrap at the Reading Phillies, courtesy of Paulines Soups and More, in a segment I like to call Ballpark Chowdown.
Royale with cheese. Royale with cheese.
There's been a mistake. You've accidentally given me the food that my food eats.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Here in Reading, Pennsylvania, yes, it's time for Ballpark Chowdown, where I go to stadium after stadium finding the best eats at the ballpark. I'm here at Paulines Soups and More, and AJ is my guest. I've ordered a grilled chicken Caesar wrap. Before I get to that wrap, which comes with chips, by the way, AJ, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. AJ, tell me a little bit about your stand, your business. What's popular here?
Well, we're a family-owned business. We've had it for 11 years. We've been in the ballpark for 7. We do a healthy option for the ballpark as well as a gluten-free option.
Okay. What are your more popular items?
Our most popular item, I would say, is the chicken Caesar wrap. It's boneless, skinless chicken breast, romaine, Caesar, onion, and Parmesan cheese. We do it on a couple different specialty wraps, and it comes with chips and pickles if you like.
These people mean business. AJ, tell me about which kind of wraps do you have?
Usually, which we always have all of them, it's spinach, tomato basil, honey wheat, garlic herb, and plain.
Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to chomp into this chicken Caesar wrap here. It looks fantastic. I got it on a spinach wrap. I also got spinach lettuce, because why not? Oh, yeah, wow, this looks like a green surprise. Oh, my, it looks great.
Extra healthy.
Yeah, right? All right, here we go. It literally is all green. I'm looking forward to sharing a picture of that, but here we go.
Simple but effective.
He says it's simple but effective. That's refreshing and it's light. That's nice.
It's good for a very hot day.
Yeah, like normally at the ballpark you eat deep fried, whatever, fries, tenders, But this is nice. I feel energetic and yeah, man. Wow, I'm looking forward to eating more of this. But yeah, that's just about a wrap at Paulines Soups and More. Anything else you want to tell the Hot Stove Cast faithful, AJ?
No, it was great having you, man. Hopefully we get to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me. That was a really good wrap. And they're a legit wrap place because they have like 5 or 6 different types of wraps. It was really good because it was light and refreshing. Sometimes they're a little watered down. No, it was all right. Like it wasn't wet. It was nice. I recommend it. I would do it. But I also have to say, Paulines Soups is fantastic. But I also have to say, Brockmar's Steakhouse, located right next to them, is sensational. For $10, you can get a brisket sandwich, a barbecue pulled pork sandwich, I don't know if you can get a rib sandwich, but I know you get this chicken sandwich, and I got this chicken sandwich, and the piece of chicken was succulent. It was just marinated right. It had this texture that was awesome. Just like, oh man, I'm starving thinking about it. And they put some sauce on there. You can get cheese if you want, and $10 includes 2 sides, and it's a simple booth, which is what I like. But they have 3 sides that are outstanding. They have these beans it's kind of like a bean explosion. It's a little sweet. They're pretty good. They have macaroni and cheese, which is lights out. It's got like that, that breading. I think they add like flour to it, or the cheese sauce, whatever. It's all delicious. But what's the killer? And with the owner, I forget his name, but I didn't see him. They weren't there. It was a rainy night, remember? But the owner told me his coleslaw is what got him in the building, and it's regionally famous. He puts chunks of pineapple in his coleslaw, and I'm telling you, folks, it was amazing. Go out there to Brockmore Steakhouse, give it a try. Also, I heard from Greg Caserta, the play-by-play number 2 guy for the Reading Fightins, that the buffalo chicken stuffed pretzel is also insanely good. I've been to Reading twice this season, and the stand was closed both times. I'm telling you, I was so excited to eat this pretzel going out there yesterday, but they were closed. So unfortunately, I couldn't get my hands on it, but I will be back because that thing has my name on it. Oh man, oh geez, that sounds so good. I mean, boil that down and think about it. Buffalo chicken stuffed soft pretzel. Woo! Greg says it'll hold you over too, so yeah, something to keep in mind. But moving on here in the show, before we wrap up, we've got Painting the Corners and Closing Time ahead, segments where I talk about starting pitchers and relievers respectively. It's pretty much a Toronto Blue Jays prospect edition. But yeah, without further ado, it's time to paint the corners.
Swing and a miss, struck him out.
20 strikeouts for Kerry Wood.
All right, Painting the Corners. Little fantasy baseball note. Guy named Darick Holland, okay? Last 30 days, he's got 22 2/3 innings, a 2.38 ERA, right? He's been better, okay? He's been better lately. There's a little bit of uncertainty as to what the Giants are going to do with the rotation going forward with Jeff Samardzija returning. However, I think Darick Holland, whose velocity is up, he's got a 9.53 strikeouts per 9 in this span, the 30-day span. Somebody to keep an eye out for guys who could be turning a corner. I remember like 4 years ago, Darick Holland was a commodity. He was a commodity, a 3.4 ERA commodity or less, and he had that brief stint with the Rangers when he was really good, and he just hasn't really returned to that form since, and he may have just done it now. So keep your eyes peeled. Stay posted for what Darick Holland's doing in San Francisco. Definitely a fantasy sports thing worth noting about. But bringing it back to the prospects and the Blue Jays, this guy on the Blue Jays AA, I wish I had seen, but Sean Reid-Foley, okay, he's now with the Bisons. I have to go out to Buffalo to go see him now, but that's a bit of a hike. I don't know if I'm going to Buffalo this season. I've been thinking about Syracuse, though, frankly. But yeah, so the Buffalo Bisons, he posted a strong 2.03 ERA with the Fisher Cats this season, and now he has a 3.56 ERA with the Bisons currently. Okay, he gets a lot of strikeouts. 78 and 65 2/3 AAA innings. He's only 22. I think he has a bright future as a number 2 starter. Sean Reid-Foley. Reid-Foley is his last name. Keep an eye out for this guy. But that's it for Painting the Corners. And moving onward, it's time to close things up. It's closing time.
There's no crying in baseball.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Yep, bring in the reliever. It's time for closing time. Remember, there's no crying in baseball. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Wrapping things up here on Hot Stove Cast 109. Thank you so much for listening. Going to keep it Blue Jays in this segment. Ryan Tepera, I think I talked about him before. He's a good underrated reliever. He's going to get reps the next 10 days or so ahead of the return of Roberto Osuna from suspension. But Tepera's got a nasty cutter and definitely worth a look in fantasy formats or just a look in general. Maybe they trade him. I don't know. But he's, if I were a big league team in front office, I would certainly be looking at Ryan Tepera as a potential augment to my staff because he's relatively cheap because he doesn't have a lot of experience or reps, but he's sneaky good. So keep your eyes peeled for Ryan Tepera. But Roberto Osuna is one of the best in the game returning from suspension, so I'd be surprised if he didn't maintain that role. But moving back down to Double-A Blue Jays, the Fisher Cats, they have a reliever named Travis Bergen, Bergen, Bergen. Okay, he's got a .39 ERA in 23 1/3 Double-A innings. Hold on. Okay, that's really good. Just outstanding, right? How are you going to beat that? I believe that's one run. That has to be one run. Yeah, it's totally one. Yeah, it's one run. He's got 11.19 Ks per nine, and he's got and what's interesting about him is that he carries a hefty .323 BABIP, despite the ERA. So, typically a guy with that ERA would have like a 150 BABIP because he's getting lucky. No, this guy is actually posting numbers this well. Now, you could potentially argue that he's getting lucky with the home runs right now, but there's really there's not a lot of evidence to say the contrary. So, personally, I think this guy's got a future regardless. I mean, if he's a 2.8 ERA guy in the big leagues, that's a good pitcher. He could be better. He could be a lot better. Who knows? But he's got a future. Keep your eyes peeled for Bergen, this 7th round pick. But nonetheless, that wraps things up here on Hot Stove Cast 109. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to the Reading Phillies for hosting the show yet again. Michael Ventola, Tim Hoffmeister, Greg Caserta do a fantastic job. That whole operation there is a state of the art. It really is. Get on out to Reading. For goodness sake, I'm gonna eat that buffalo chicken stuffed pretzel I don't care if it kills me. All right, maybe I care a little bit if it kills me, but nonetheless, this was fun. Darick Hall was a treat to talk to. He basically gave you hunting 101, and just what really amazing and impressive answers out of the youngster. Wow. I mean, even a guy like David Parkinson said something about taking a mission trip to Haiti if he got a bunch of money and he got a chance to go on a vacation. Like, I don't think that's an accident that you hear guys with good character delivering good interviews from the Philadelphia Phillies organization. So, tip of the cap to Darick Hall and the Reading Fightin' Phils. Next week, I will actually be doing the show from a new location. I've done all of these shows from my location outside of Philadelphia. I'll be doing this show abroad, so I'm kind of excited for that. But yeah, keep it locked. Hot Stove Cast. HotStoveCast.com is so damn close to being done. Check it out. It has some content there already. Follow me at Hot Stove Cast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Find the Hot Stove Cast, like it. There's going to be content in all those places. I'm always tweeting, always. I'm going to step up the Instagram game, I promise. And I'm really looking forward to talking more prospects and more baseball with you here on the Hot Stove Cast. So again, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.
Oh, hey.